everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're just letting people in from the waiting room. We appreciate your participation, especially live, so close to the holidays. So thank you so much for being here. We have a couple more folks joining us. My name is Ariana Kinjerski. I am an education specialist here at Royal Roads University. I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Chaseten Remillard, who's the Associate Professor and Program Head of the MAPC program. Of course, today, the reason we're all here is to learn about the MA in Professional Communication or MAPC program. So thank you again so much for joining us. You'll see your microphones as well have been muted. So if you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to just type into the chat box. We would love to hear from you. If you want to send us a message now and let us know maybe where you're joining in from. It's always nice to see where everybody is tuning in from. So thank you. Before we begin, it's incredibly important at Royal Roads University to acknowledge our traditional lands. Of course, we acknowledge that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. We are deeply grateful to be able to live, work, and play on these lands where so many of us can come together. So thank you so much. Just a quick agenda, of course, before we continue into a little bit more of the program information, some introductions and a quick welcome to Royal Roads. We're going to talk a little bit about bridging the graduate certificate in professional communication management into the MA, in case that's something that's of interest, some more program information, and then I'll be covering the how to apply at the end. So if you're not familiar with Royal Roads University, you'll see we have a pretty beautiful campus. I'm always very proud to be able to share that with people. So we have a couple photos here for you. You'll see in the top left, we have our most famous Hatley Castle, and that's been in many movies. So movies like X-Men, Deadpool. This place is very familiar to people from the big screen. You'll see just to the right of that, we have our Japanese gardens. We have a lot of different gardens here at Royal Roads University and a lot of forest and trail space. So it's a really beautiful place to be. You'll see the bottom left, we also have our Esquimalt Lagoon. That is our migratory bird sanctuary, one of my favorite places to take a walk and enjoy the water view. And then, of course, we also have our online learning component. And at Royal Roads, we've been doing that for well over 25 years now, the online and the blended learning. And that's something we're super proud of as well. So beautiful campus and then wonderful things that are happening online as well. And if you're asking yourself, why on earth would I choose Royal Roads when there's so many universities? We did a alumni survey, so some results from that were pretty impressive. 93% of our Royal Roads alumni say that we've positively influenced their personal and professional lives. 92% say they felt supported by the staff and faculty at Royal Roads. 90% say that Royal Roads provided them with the tools and knowledge required for a leadership role in the workplace. And of course, 89% say that Royal Roads provided them with the tools and knowledge to be innovative in the workplace as well. And as an alumni myself, I can confirm that that is all true. And as we continue on here, I will hand it off to Chase, who will take us through the program structure and information. Chase.
Thanks very much. Yeah, welcome everyone. It would be great to hear from you in the chat, just as Lyndon has done, where you're coming from and whether or not you're thinking about doing the MA degree or whether or not you're thinking about the grad cert. So if you have an opportunity, just drop that into the chat. As Ariana said, that I am the program head for the MA. So I'm not only the program head, but I also teach in the program. And I'm just going to run through the program structure with you and give you kind of an insight into how the program is put together and answer any questions that you might have about content and so on. So the program as it's structured is a 2-year program. There are 2 ways that you can complete the program now. We have a on-campus residency in the fall, and we have a non-campus requirement intake in May. So there's sort of a spring and a fall intake, and in the spring intake, if each of them follow the same program, but in the spring intake, there's no requirement to come to Royal Roads. You will, in the fall, have an opportunity to come to Royal Roads for 2 weeks and meet everyone on campus. So we've adjusted that recently. That wasn't the case. We used to have the residency for both of the intakes, but we've heard that from people that they'd like to have a little bit of flexibility in terms of whether or not they want to come to campus. So the program starts off whether or not you're meeting in face-to-face or meeting online for what we call like the residency or the intensive. It starts off with 3 courses, and I think those 3 courses sort of give you a good indication of what the program is really about. So we have one of the courses is in communications theory, one of the courses is in research methods, and one of the courses is organizational culture and organizational communication. So the reason why I say that those sort of embody the way that the program is put together is because we really work hard in the program to marry the theoretics of doing communications with the practice of doing communications. So on the one hand, you have theory. So we take sort of we call it like, there's a sort of called the 7 approaches to communications theory, and some of them are psychology, some of them are sociology, some of them are systems, some of them are interpersonal, some of them are critical and cultural. And we run through all of the ways in which communications has been sort of kind of conceptualized theoretically, right? And lay a real foundation for understanding the processes by which we as humans interact with each other and use communication technologies and use communication practice to create and transmit meaning and shape culture and society and so on. So that's sort of the theory part of it. On the other hand, we have the organizational course, organizational communications course, which takes as its sort of core activity what we call is the organizational case challenge. So this is a really unique opportunity that we have at Royal Roads that we run, where we partner with local and even not necessarily local, depending on the needs of the organization, but we work with organizations like, for example, the BC Corners. We worked with Rugby Canada. We worked with credit unions. We worked with Green Party candidates. We've worked with small restaurants. We've worked with yoga studios. So we basically sort of put out a call to different organizations, different types of organizations. We always try to get a range: government, non-government, corporate, entrepreneurial. And the case challenge is really an opportunity for you to work in a team, get to know the folks that are in your cohort with you, and solve a problem for an organization. So it's really practice focused. It's really looking at the ways in which an organization is having some issues with communications as they think. And you come in as a sort of a group of experts, and you problem solve that and present a solution to them. You don't have to execute it, and we don't have time for you to actually put it into place, but you give them a roadmap for how they could go about fixing whatever that might be. So the one that sort of sticks out to me recently was the Canadian Pilots Association. They came and they asked how they could communicate their efforts to be more inclusive and diverse, and in a way that would be more effective. So they had this mandate that they wanted to have a diversification of the types of folks that were applying to and becoming pilots, and they have all this funding and money, but they were having a really difficult time to try to conceptualize how they should do that through communications and on their communication challenge or on their channels. And so the team came together and they work through that with the organization, and then they give them recommendations on how to change certain communications positionings and what platforms to be on and what things to post on their website and so on. Again, giving them a sort of a roadmap to be more strategic. So you have the practice on the one side and you have the theory on the other, and then you have these courses like research methods, which is really like a bridge between those two. So in research methods, you learn both how to do research that's going to be beneficial for organizations, because a lot of communications work, as you know, is based upon research and what types of demographics, what's your audience, all those types of marketing and public relations strategies are going to come from an understanding of research. But also you need to know the sort of the theory of method and the theory of methodology and research, so that you can create more robust and more effective research metrics and capture better data, right? So the theory and the practice is sort of bridged by these bridging courses. And so, for example, if we take a look at the program structure, I'll come back to this slide in a second, but if we take a look at the program structure, you have these, what we're calling the intensive or the residency, where you have these three: introduction to communication theory, communication and culture in organizations, research process and methods. There is where you will meet. If you're coming to campus for 2 weeks, you'll meet then. If you're doing it online, then what we'll have is like an online intensive where you'll meet virtually in Zoom over those 2 weeks and sort of have some more richer conversations. Then you have what we call distance one, where you go away and you work through a couple of different courses: communication, culture, media, and technology, communication policy, and politics and law. Then in what we say distance two, you start to specialize a little bit, because there's 3 different ways that you can, I'll come back to that in a second. There's 3 different ways in which you can complete the program. You can complete the program via course-based or research. That's one pathway. We call it a completion pathway. The other one is a research project, which is another pathway. And then there's a third pathway, which is the thesis. So after distance one, after you've sort of had 5 courses and you've been into the program a little bit of time, we ask you to make a decision. What pathway are you going to choose to complete your degree? And depending on which pathway you choose, then it changes your schedule slightly. So we have in distance two sort of different pathways if you're doing thesis than if you're doing research paper or course-based. And then as you go into intensive two, where again you have those 3 courses together with a couple of weeks either face-to-face or in a virtual intensive, then again, depending on which pathway you're taking, you will have slightly different courses than your cohort. So we have the cohort model, which means that everyone comes in and everyone takes the same basic courses all the way, or the core courses all the way through till about intensive 2. When you get to intensive 2, then that's when you start to differentiate. And so the last course that you have with your cohort, with everyone in the room, is strategic communication. So that is the course where sort of the last hurrah of the cohort as everyone is together. And then depending on which pathway you've chosen for distance 3, you either then do your thesis, you do your research paper, or you do your course-based pathway. So what are those differences and what do they mean for you as a student coming into the MA? Well, the thesis pathway takes up 12 credits, and it basically starts after your intensive 2, after your residency 2, and it ends at that, like all your coursework ends at that time if you're in the thesis pathway. And then you work with a supervisor and a second committee member. And it's sort of as you would imagine and see on TV, or if you've done a graduate degree before, or you imagine a degree, it's that process. You conceptualize some question that you're interested in, your supervisor and your committee shape the direction of your research so that it's manageable, so they help you along the path. Once you've completed it, then you have a defense where you have a conversation with your committee, and then after your defense, you're done your thesis. And so it's a very individual based project, and a lot of people like the challenge of it. And I would say that one of the sort of defining criteria for whether or not you're going to do a thesis is that you're interested in a kind of question that you just can't escape, right? You just always are coming back to that question. You really are interested in that question, and it really becomes a motivating factor for you. You need to find out whatever it might be that you're trying to find out. The research paper pathway is the default. That's the way that the program was really designed to be, is for most of the students, we expect them to take the research paper pathway. So the research pathway is that, or the research paper pathway is that it's 6 credits. So it's half as much as the thesis, which allows you to have 2 more courses, right? So it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of, or diversity in terms of the types of things that you are learning. So you can take another elective basically, and you get to take a special topics, right? Whereas the thesis students don't get that kind of diversity, but you still get to pursue a question. It's just that you're not expected to produce such a long research paper, because it's about half of what the thesis would be. And you're also not expected to go through all of those formal checks and balances in terms of your research. In other words, you don't have to have an external review of it. You don't have to have a defense, right? And so you get to pursue your research, but you don't necessarily have to have the pressure of having somebody look at it or have to go in and do a defense of it. And that really shrinks the timeline, because you don't have to send it out to somebody and then wait for them to get back to you. You don't have to do the revisions on it before you go into the defense. So that's again why it sort of is 6 credits, and why a lot of our students sort of, like I said, is sort of the program is set up that way. And a lot of students, when they do the research paper, they take that opportunity to follow a research agenda that might help them specifically within their career path. Where in a thesis, a lot of times people are pursuing questions that are beneficial for them in terms of their career, but they might also be just really something that they're super interested in, you know, that isn't necessarily career related. So, and that's not necessarily like always the distinction, but that's oftentimes the distinction between a thesis and a research paper as well, is that the research paper tends to be sort of more practical or like practice based, and the thesis tends to be a little bit more theoretical and kind of more academic and research based. The other way to finish the program is what we call the course-based. And the course-based pathway is that you don't do any extended research like you do in the thesis and the research paper. You choose 2 electives that are outside of the program of the MA, are like outside of our program in the School of Communication and Culture. So what that means is that you can choose from a list of general study courses from, let's say, leadership, or from business, or from any of the other faculties and programs that exist at Royal Roads that you feel diversifies your skill set. And so the course-based is a really good option for people who are super busy, that they're very busy with their work or their personal lives or both. And they like to have that structure where they know they're going to start something 10 weeks later, they're going to end it. It's contained within that time period, and they kind of have a certainty that comes with it. So yeah, they don't have the opportunity to sort of stretch out into a research topic and kind of explore something more of their own design, but they benefit from, on the other side, they benefit from the fact that they know that once they've written the assignments for 2 more courses, that they're done their degree. So the flexibility in the program is actually quite unique. A lot of programs, MA programs, don't offer all three of these options. They might offer two, but they don't typically offer all three. And sometimes they don't offer you anything. And so that's really something to think about when you're making a decision about what program you go into, ours or someone else's, or whether or not you join a program, is, how do you actually get through it? And I think what the stats that I always say Ariana, but is that right, or is it Ariana?
I usually say Ariana, but thank you for
Okay,
asking.
and that sort of speaks to the stats that Ariana presented, where the one that stuck out to me is, I think it was like 93% of the students felt supported. I think that's a really big difference between our program and, let's say, the program that I went through and did my MA in, which was at University of Calgary, which was really kind of like, they just basically wound you up, put you in the program, and kind of, there you go, like, finish when you want to finish, and you were left to your own devices to get through it. And that's just maybe in the nature of being at a bigger university versus being at a smaller university. But our program has a very high graduation rate, both for graduate and undergraduate. Like, it's not even in the same realm of percentages as most universities. And the reason I think that is because there's a lot of proximity that you have to your professors and to your program heads, and the focus and ethos of Royal Roads is really on the student and making sure that the journey for the student is a successful one. So I couldn't tell you who my program head was when I was doing my MA, but you'll see me in the classroom, you'll see me throughout, you'll be able to talk to me, and that makes a big difference. Our class sizes are typically sort of smaller, you get to know people very well. And the other thing that's really great about Royal Roads is that it's really focused on the cohort model, and our learning and teaching model, which really focuses on like peer-to-peer learning. And I think that when you're in a profession like communications, knowing other people in other organizations, having that network across Canada and internationally is a really important thing, because it's the relationships that you will build with your cohort that will really drive you to success, to complete the program, but also outside, as they may have opportunities for you in their organization, or they might have projects for you to work on, or they might have insights to help you solve a problem that you're working through. So one of the things that we really find is that the cohort model allows you to benefit from the diversity of students that we have coming in. We have people who come in from creative industries, so we have filmmakers, we have photographers, we have writers, a lot of people from creative industries come into the program. We have a lot of people come in from what I would call sort of traditional professional communications places, like public relations, government relations, people who work in institutions like Royal Roads in a communications capacity. We have those types of people in the program. We have people coming in from corporate, like, so we will have people who come in from like big corporate organizations like Husky or like Petro-Canada, or like sort of resource based. We have people who work in the nonprofit and the health, and so we have a lot of diversity in the room. And we have students who go on to, and even sometimes they might have to pause their studies because they get a great opportunity. We had one of our master's students a few years ago, probably 20, I guess it would rate in Justin Trudeau's first term. One of our students was actually like shoulder tapped to go and work in the PMO office. So they left for that opportunity. They came back and then graduated later, but that was the type of opportunity that kind of came their way. So not only is it great that you know somebody who's doing that, but you also are learning from them and they're learning from you, right? And that's, I think, the really interesting part of it. And that's one of the reasons why I love teaching in the MA program, is because when I go into that classroom, it's a challenging classroom. There's a lot of different diversity of experiences and insights, and that makes me better because it makes me have to speak to different types of understandings of what communications is or what the process should be. And so it is a really dynamic environment, and it's one that's kind of a lot of fun to be in. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but I feel most of my conversations with students are that they really enjoy the challenge of it and they enjoy the program. I know I just sort of stalled out on this one slide, but I'll just talk very quickly if you're interested in the grad cert. So the grad cert happens that you take 3 of our courses, and you take those 3 courses with our MA students while they're in their intensive 2. So you come in with the second years, basically. If you think of that, we have the intensives line up each year. You have the first years doing the first intensive, and the second years doing their second intensive. You as a grad cert come in, certificate student, you come into intensive 2 with the second years, and you take the 3 courses that they otherwise take. So you join them. So again, this is a unique difference between what we offer as a graduate certificate and what a lot of other institutions offer as a graduate certificate or diploma or so on, is because you actually join and get credit for our program. So it's not that you're taking some secondary program through continuing studies that is sort of quarantined and siloed over there. You're actually in the classroom experiencing what the classroom would be with the people who otherwise are in the classroom as full degree students. And it gives you a real great opportunity to meet those people, interact with those people, but also get a taste of what it would be like to take the program. And you get 9 credits. Like, you get all of those credits for you as Royal Roads credits that you can apply to your degree. So it really allows you to then, go away, think about it, and come back and hopefully say, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. And if that's the case, then you start with everyone in a cohort in intensive 1, like in that part, and you go through, and we work with you to get your schedule and your course completion sorted out. But typically you sort of follow the same pathway up until intensive 2, and then you have a little bit more options on how to finish your degree. So I have one last thing that I'll say before I turn it back to Ariana, and that is, where do people go after they're done with us? Well, they go everywhere. They do some really interesting things. Like I said, they go into government positions, private sector, consultancy, they go into higher education, creative industries, NGOs, they go on the digital side of things, they go into the publishing side of things. That's the other really great thing about a degree like communications, is that it's a really desirable, needed expertise now, right? Every organization is going to have a communication shop, or if they don't, they're going to be hiring one to do contract work for them, because communications is such an important element of any kind of organization now, that that's in any industry. So it's a real great opportunity. It's a really good program. There are some really innovative things that are coming up. We're building a course on AI. We're building a course on professional communication in indigenous contexts, right? We're looking for opportunities. We're always looking for opportunities to to bring in special topic courses, things that are interesting and topical right now. So the program moves pretty quickly in different directions, but the core kind of idea of that pracademic, right? Somebody who's both practice and academic is really the kind of core of what we're trying to get at. So I'll be quiet now. I'll let Ariana continue. There was a few questions that came in. I don't know if they were covered or not, but.
Yeah, thank you, Chase. We just have one question from Lyndon in the chat. I think this might be timely. What are the opportunities for students in the cohort to work together in person or online? So I don't know if you want to touch on that briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the opportunities are pretty great. There's always opportunity for teamwork in a lot of the classrooms. There's teamwork, like I said, in the OrgCom challenge, you work in it with a little bit more like motivation, I guess, because you have an external client. And so there's sort of a little bit of a higher bar that you want to, because you have, it's not just in the classroom, it's actually in real world. Not that the classroom isn't real world, but so yeah, there's a real strong idea of teamwork and team learning throughout all of the program. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single course is going to have a big project. That's not the case at all. Like in the theory class, it's pretty hard to have a team component in the theory class because there's a lot of individual learning that you need to do. But for example, in the research methods class, we don't have a big, I teach that course, we don't have a big team assignment, but what we do is we work in teams to do some data analysis. And so one of the assignments worth sort of 10 or 15% is a team assignment that you kind of spend an afternoon together and work through a data set and come up with some conclusions. And so that's sort of I would say is the sort of range. Some courses are really heavy on team components, others very light, but there's often always an opportunity to learn from your peers and to learn from your cohort.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Chase. And then with that, I know, Lily, you had a question about what is the CB pathway? I believe that's the course-based pathway, and we just touched on that kind of at the beginning of the session. So that is, the third pathway option other than the research paper or the thesis. So hope that answers your question. With that, I will move on, folks, to the how to apply. So I hope that if you're on the call or you're watching the recording, that you're thinking about applying to either the grad cert or the MA program. So if you are wondering how to do so, I'll just give you a few quick steps. So of course, the first step is to pay an online application fee. Presently, that's $134.01. And then we ask at Rural Roads for some supporting documents because we really want to get an idea of who you are, things that you've done in the workplace, other schooling that you've done. So we ask for things like official transcripts, a detailed resume, really going into detail of your previous positions or volunteering. As well as a personal statement. When I applied to the grad certificate program, that was one of my favorite parts of really the application process. This really gives you a moment to sit down and really think about what you're bringing into the program and what you wish to get out of the program as well. Of course, more details on how to do all of these are on our website, but this is really just kind of like a letter stating those things, kind of what you want to get out of it, and then what you bring to it too. As well as we ask for 2 letters of reference. So those can be either professional or academic or a mix of both. So 2 of those as well when you're submitting your application. Of course, we know going back to school in any capacity, this is a big step, right? So we have things like financial aid and award services. So financial resources, they're available to you. So things like loans, bursaries, scholarships, other awards. We have student research scholarships, even emergency funding as well, because sometimes life happens, right? So if you're thinking about that, then you'll see the URL on the screen or on our website. It's just under financial aid and awards. as well as enrollment services, some of my favorite folks. They can be reached, and they're really good at answering, your program options, answer questions about your application, and connect you with students and alumni as well, who can really give you their firsthand experience. You'll see the email for that, easy to remember. It's just learn.more@royalroads.ca. And then we have some phone numbers for local, if you're in Victoria, and then toll free as well for North America. So give them a call, send them an email, and they'd be happy to answer any further questions that you have that we maybe haven't answered today, or questions that pop up as you move along in your application. Some key dates. Chase was talking about kind of the fall and the spring intake. So the fall intake starting in September 2024. The application deadline for that, there's still a little bit of time. So June 23rd, 2024, but it will be here before you know it. So if you're thinking about it, now is a good time as always to apply. And then the spring start date as well, May 6th, 2024 is online. So that's the fully online intake. And the application deadline for that coming up much faster. That's February 6th, 2024. So that'll be here before you know it. So if you are thinking about starting in the spring, excellent time to get those documents in to us. And with that, that wraps up my end of the show here. But if you have any further questions in the chat, as we're wrapping up, feel free to type them in. Or as I said, learn.more@royalroads.ca. And then Chase, thank you for popping your email in the chat as well. Excellent resource. You can answer more of the program questions as well. Chase, is there anything you want to add as we wrap up for the day?
Maybe we should close off can we close off the PowerPoint?
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's a couple questions that came in. Melissa says, are there timelines for both programs the same? Well, there's just one program, 2 different intakes. So you join like September cohort or you join the May cohort, and each of them have their own timeline, right? So if you're with the May folks, you'll always be with the May folks, May 2024, that'll be your cohort, and you'll go through, it's exactly 2 years, right? Or 24 months. And if you were with September 2024, then you go through with the September 2024 cohort, and you will never have an overlap unless you end up taking like an elective or something like that with somebody from the other cohorts. Otherwise, you're just with your sort of year, right? And so the timelines are the same in the sense that they're both 24 months. The application timeline. I'm not sure if the application timeline is the same. I think they are, in terms of it's a rolling application, which means that if you apply, you'll get a word back. We don't wait for a certain day to get you back. So if you applied now and you said, I want to go to May, within however many weeks it takes to go through your documentation, then you would get a reply right away. Lyndon says, what are the opportunities to talk with faculty, whether in person for those of us who are local or online office hours? Are you talking before you're in the program or out of the program? Like, are you talking now, Lyndon, that you would like to talk to somebody about going into the program, or are you talking while you're in the program, during the program? All the time. I mean, basically, whenever you're in the program, that's what I mean is that most of our folks that work as faculty are really open to that kind of conversation. I can't think of anyone who wouldn't set a time to talk with you. The other thing is that sometimes because when you're in distance 1, for example, you're taking, politics, media, and law, the person who teaches that sometimes is in Ontario. And so what might be local for you here, because Royal Roads is here, might not be local for them. But there's often times where people are in Calgary or Toronto, and they can meet their fellow cohort members, or they meet a professor who's there, or the faculty member who's there. And yeah, because of Zoom and the connectivity with Zoom, there's lots and lots of opportunities to connect.
That's great. And then Abigail, I saw you had a question in the chat about language requirements for international students. I just posted the link there, and I can include that in the follow-up as well. There are English language requirements. They're all on our website here, and you'll see it's a lot for me to cover. I won't go through that now, but that's certainly something that you can kind of go through on the website, and then enrollment services would be happy to speak to you about that as well, kind of more on a one-on-one, just to see where students are at. That's great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. That is wonderful. Thank you to Chase. Appreciate your time and your being here. Thank you to the folks on the call. And then, of course, we'll send out the recording as well. So if you've made it to the end of the recording, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to reach out. We would love to hear from you. And you can reply to my follow-ups as well, and I can connect you appropriately too. So again, thank you so much, folks, for your time today. And then we hope to see you in our program soon. Have a wonderful day.